What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of UnSKripted. Listen, it's Tuesday night. You know what that means. I have some of the biggest, the baddest, the best wrestlers of today, yesteryear, and tonight is no different, brother. Just need to get that out. All right, listen. I've got a statement to read you. I'm going to read it verbatim because I don't want to give my friend a disservice because this is 2 years in the making and he did it and he deserves every ounce of kudos for it. And so I'm going to read it. So after 2 long years, we are proud to announce that the Academy School of Professional Wrestling, in collaboration with Midwest All-Star Wrestling, MAW, has a beautiful brand new home. We're excited to be welcomed into the 25,000 square foot fitness paradise known as Element Gym in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Academy continues to be dedicated to helping people from all walks of life achieve their dreams within the ever exciting and expanding business of professional wrestling. Midwest All-Star Wrestling is one of the many premier attractions on the Midwest independent wrestling scene. They run 15 to 16 shows a year and regularly offer opportunities for Academy students to hone their skills in front of a live audience. Element Gym is a boxing gym that is also home to many different local businesses that offer strength and conditioning, ballet, yoga, kickboxing, basketball, and is now the official home of the Academy School of Professional Wrestling. Not to steal a phrase that's on WWE Raw, but I'm going to do it anyways. For the Academy, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Without further ado, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, former WWE United States Champion, and someone who's become a friend of mine. I think, you know what? If I'm not mistaken, I've been doing this is my 10th year as a journalist. And I think there might be a couple that's like in the running, like a Marty Elias, JTG. I think they're up there. But this person I think is still number one, or at least in the top 3 of my most interviewed, the most times I've ever interviewed one person. So he's up there. And it seems like every single time I interview is there's always something new and fun to talk about because he's so cool to talk to. And it's been a while. So just checking in on a buddy. Ken Anderson, how are you tonight, my man?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I hope I did your statement. It's just due.
You definitely did. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to
Awesome.
be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Anything you want to add to the statement that you wrote a couple of days?
No, just what you said and what we said in our post. Like it's been a rough 2 years. It's been a long 2 years, and we're finally ready. We found a home, and we feel really good about this. It's
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Awesome, man. Ready to get into these questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's start with Guillermo's asking, was there any plans for you as Mr. McMahon, or Mr. McMahon, as Gerald Briscoe would say? And if you could choose someone else as the bastard son, who would you have chosen?
Ooh. You are they asking if I was? I mean, the original plan was for me to be Vince's illegitimate his illegitimate son,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then I got in trouble. And then I got in trouble.
Yeah.
And then and that was they pulled the rug out from that one. But I remember the day that Stephanie came to me and she said, like, Vince has something he wants to tell you, but I'm going to let him tell you. And then we went over the whole thing. And then, they said there's going to be a series of weeks. There's going to be a series of vignettes on little backstage interviews and things like that. We're going to drop some dimes and let people figure out that it's going to be you. And I remember they narrowed it down to he's got blonde hair, right? Which narrowed it down to like me, Hornswoggle, and I believe the Sandman were the only three in the company at that time. Maybe Bob Holly. No, I think Bob was already gone too. So it was just the three of us. And then I got in trouble. And then they also announced that they were gonna announce it in Green Bay because we were in Green Bay. And then and then womp womp womp.
I remember that Green Bay. I was like, it's got to be Kennedy, right? And then it was Hornswoggle that I think he came from underneath the ring, if I'm not mistaken.
But to be honest, like he killed that role.
He did.
He really did, and they ran with it for a long time. I don't know that we could have gotten as much mileage out of me being the son as they got out with Hornswoggle being the son. But
now, what was the post type of plans after the reveal? Did y'all go that far, or did you go just
nothing.
As far as the reveal?
No, as far as I know, it was just the thing about wrestling is that because things are ever changing, and you never know who's going to get injured or whatever. There's things that are constantly changing. They don't like to plan ahead too far. I mean, I think that there are times where they'll say like, there'll be like a bullet points. Here's where we want to go by next year's WrestleMania, but it's very light in the sense that like they don't plan it out just because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Aaron is asking, how influential was Paul Heyman in your career, and how did the name Ken Kennedy come about? Mr. Kennedy come about.
I mean, it was Paul's idea to choose the name Kennedy in the first place. And Paul was hugely influential even before I met him, because I was a fan of ECW and I was a fan of Paul's work. And then when I originally started at OVW, Jim Cornette was in charge of the pencil there. Like he wrote everything and he got released. And I remember Paul came down and immediately said, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to push you. I've got a lot of ideas for you. And he told me at the time, he was like, you'll be on TV within the next 2 months, meaning that I would be on the active roster on SmackDown or Raw. And in the wrestling business, people like to say things, whether it's independent promoters telling you that they've got a TV program that's lined up and we got TV coming, or a promoter telling you that they're going to take you to Germany or overseas or something like that. But you never know what to expect. And he was right. I think 5 weeks after we started doing where I was announcing myself, I was on TV. So it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I remember watching that. What was that, 05?
05, yeah.
05? Yeah, I remember watching that. And I remember you beat a few people, like I think it was like Scotty Too Hotty, Funaki, or a few names that you beat. And then you started doing the Kennedy deal, and then you beat like higher card people, like I think it was Booker T. I think
Booker,
you beat. Yeah,
yep.
And I was like, "Who the heck is this guy?" Like, I don't, I don't know him. You know what I mean? But it was like you were drawing heat by being a relative newcomer to a lot of people's eyes and beating these big name talent. I think beating Shawn Michaels, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Michaels or somebody else that you beat? I know you beat Batista by DQ. I know you beat Taker. But it was like another person that you beat that was like a world champion contender, and I was like, it might have been Mysterio. Was it Mysterio that you beat?
Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, I think it was Mysterio, and I was like, man, like he's racking up some quality wins here, man. They must have they must have a lot of stake in him. So it was pretty cool, man.
It was amazing to go from being on the independent scene to then being in OVW and sort of being like floundering at OVW, just trying to stay afloat.
Yeah.
When Jim was there, and I'm not saying anything bad about Jim, it was just like he didn't see anything in me, and then out of a 1 hour program, I'm on like 35 minutes of that 1 hour program at OVW to suddenly debuting on. I debuted on Velocity, and I was on Velocity for 2 weeks, I think, and then they pulled me over to the active roster. I remember on the day that they pulled me up to SmackDown, I made my debut on SmackDown. John Laurinaitis came up to me and he said, "Hey, Vince wants to talk to you. He wants you to change your name," because I was Ken Anderson at the time, and so I was like, I really wanted to keep my real name, but there were a bunch of different reasons that I was given for why they wanted me to switch it. And I understood it to some degree. And so then I called Paul during the day and I said, "Hey, here's the deal. Here's what they want me to do. You got any suggestions?" And we just kind of brainstormed for an hour or more about different names. And finally, Paul said, Kennedy is Vince's middle name.
Nice. Real quick, little sidebar. I'm a huge fan of WWE or just pro wrestling theme songs. I love pro wrestling theme songs, and I think a theme song can really make or break a character. Your theme song has always been catchy, and it's always helped you and helps your character. Who kind of came up with your theme song and evolution, really, especially to the end? I really loved your final theme song before you left WWE. It's more of a faster pace to it, more of a rocky, faster pace, lots of guitar strumming there. Who came up with that idea of your music theme songs?
It was Jim Johnson.
Oh, legend.
Jim Johnston or Johnson? Johnston. Jim Johnson.
Yeah.
And who's done like everybody's music for the longest time. Yep. And
nice.
I remember sitting in the office with Vince. I was in Vince's office, and we were discussing music, and he's like, "What do you like?" And I just told him, like, on the independent scene, I use "Pour Some Sugar on Me" by Def Leppard, and I like stuff like that. I like
metal.
Yeah. And they pitched that, and then I remember they pitched just the song itself, and then I was like, "Is there any way we could put my intro at the beginning of it?" As not to compare myself, but like, you want that like glass break where like the second your music hits, everybody knows who's coming to the ring.
Yep.
So
100%.
And then we added my intro to it.
Nice.
And then I will say too, like I think my favorite intro, my favorite entrance music that I've ever had is the stuff that I got from TNA.
You like TNA's? Yeah, TNA's
I
is good.
really do. Like
Yeah.
it's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah, I liked it too.
for me.
Yeah, I've interviewed Jim Johnston before, and man, I say this a lot of time. I've interviewed over 300 wrestlers. I think I'm at like 16 or 17 WWE Hall of Famers. But
Wow.
one of the people who I desired to interview the most was Jim. And I had the privilege of interviewing him last year on this show, actually, Unscripted. And he was in the studio and he started playing like theme songs, like with his piano and his guitar. And I was like, oh, man, this is amazing. So it's like doing this for a while, man. I usually don't mark out on interviews and stuff like that, but man, that was one. That was one, and I was a mark just that whole time, man. He played Taker's. He went to his piano, started playing Taker's theme song, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. So yeah,
Like you'd like to be a fly on the wall for that creative process, you know?
Yes, absolutely, man. Cool.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Rorito. Greetings from Puerto Rico. What were your top 4 wrestling matches all time in WWE? And what wrestlers would you have wanted to face you never got the chance to?
Oh boy. I mean, obviously my favorite wrestler of all time was Stone Cold. So it would have been nice to be able to Stone Cold or The Rock. But I was fortunate, and sometimes I pinch myself looking back at the people that I was able to be in the ring with, you know, like I remember the first night I was in the ring with Undertaker, the first night I was on a house show in Oklahoma City. And it was just like our very first time. He just said, let's just go out there and see what we can do. We didn't call anything in the back. We didn't talk about anything. He just said, listen to me, you know? And I remember standing in the middle of the ring and the lights went out and I heard the gong and I got goosebumps on my arms. Like, how am I here? Like, what is going on right now? This is crazy. And but I would say my favorite matches in WWE, the match that I had with Matt Hardy, we did a 3-segment match on SmackDown. It was after I had won the briefcase. We did just a heck of a match that night. And it was funny because we had I was actually supposed to work a local guy that night. I was supposed to squash a local, and Matt Hardy was going to work with Psychosis. And I remember Matt came up to me and he was like, dude, do you know that we got a 3-segment match and we're up next? And I was like, what? He said, yeah. And then Johnny Ace came around the corner. He's like, okay, guys, let's come up with a break. Because you got to have like some sort of action where there's like a break in the action to go to break. A specific spot where, okay, we're going to go to break, folks. And we had to come up with 2 break spots and then the finish. And we did all of that in the matter of probably 3 minutes. And we called everything else on the fly. And I should say Matt called everything on the fly. I just listened to him at that point because Matt is such a pro and he's such an experienced vet. Yeah. And we had worked with each other a ton up until that point. So it was just like, but that was really fun. Nice. I would say my match with Shawn Michaels at Armageddon, I believe it was. My Money in the Bank briefcase, my Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 23. And I would WrestleMania 24. I mean, like, that's what everybody dreams of, right? Like WrestleMania experiences.
Yeah. And we got a super chat from Jason, so those come first. So I might miss a bunch of questions, but the super chats come first. Before we get to Jason's super chat, real quick thoughts on the Undertaker and the Hall of Fame. And there's kind of a buzzing topic among a lot of people that I found out recently because Vince Russo and I were just talking about it on our show last night. But I kind of pitched an idea, and I heard it was in different. A lot of other spaces have been talking about this too, about the Undertaker being the only person inducted in the Hall of Fame this year I'm actually a fan of it. I think it should be segment by segment of different people throughout his evolution. I said that from when it debuted in 1990, like Ted DiBiase, is the one who introduced Brother Love, brought him out. You know what I mean? So like you have like certain people who are still alive in eras do speeches based on eras. And so
Wow.
I think that would be my pitch as far as how the Hall of Fame goes. What do you think about that?
I think that's incredible. I think that's an incredible idea. I think Undertaker is in a category all by himself to begin with. Just in like what he's done for the company, what he's done, how he carries himself, how he's conducted himself as a person, as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
He's just an amazing human being in so many regards. Like he's good at what he does. He is like the way that he handles locker room, I say politics,
Mm-hmm.
has always been like he's very fair. I don't know. He's just I could definitely I would be on board for Undertaker being the sole inductee into the Hall of Fame for
Yeah.
1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should happen. There's so many people in pockets of his career. I mean, even the latter parts, like a Roman Reigns, you know what I mean? Like he beat him, in Orlando. He can speak for that. John Cena, was his final WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 34. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then AJ Styles actually when 35 was his last match during the pandemic. And so there's just so many people who can really make it like really nice from a era standpoint.
He's always been about, he's very protective of his character,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always been super protective, but like also at the same time, how do I make this next guy? Like if I can't go out there and wrestle by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I make these other people look? And he's always been really, really giving uh, of other people. He was very giving to me, like he took me under his wing for a couple of years
Yeah.
and just said like, come on, the air is fine up here. We can both live up here. So it was really cool.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. I think I said 35. It was 35 was in New Jersey. I was there. He wasn't on the show. 36 is COVID, I think. Yeah. So that was the one with AJ. So that was his, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken, that was his last Mania match. Yeah, because he wasn't on last year in Tampa, and he's not. So that was his last Mania match. So I think AJ be somebody, to be a cool, person to speak. Brock, Roman, so many different people. So,
Yep.
Jason's asking, love your announcing with Top Boxing. Any Howard Finkel memories? Appreciate the super chat, Jason.
Howard, the only experiences I ever had with Howard was when I was with WWE. He was in charge of the travel and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he would, man, if I missed a flight early in the morning, if I overslept, I felt like that happened more often than it should have. Um, you know, Texting him or calling him at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever was nothing. And he was always like, you could always hear that he had a smile on his face. Yep, I'll call you right back. I'll get that taken care of. And he was awesome. He was really a great guy to work with.
Nice.
Fortunate to have known him.
Awesome. Let's go to Yosef. Did you like working with Vince Russo, TNA? What'd you think of him, and what would you do? Would you do a show with Russo on the brand?
I loved working with Vince. Yep. I know that he had some, during our times working together, he had some interesting ideas that that I'm not a big fan of, but overall, he's just a creative guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's constantly, being being creative in wrestling is one of the hardest jobs in the world, I think, because it's 52 weeks a year that you have to keep coming up with. And it's not just one or two people that you have to come up with material for. It's the whole roster.
Mm-hmm.
And he does that. And I don't know, he was just always really, really cool to work with.
Yeah.
Always open to ideas, like creative suggestions. So yeah, I loved working with him.
Yes, indeed. Thoughts on AEW? Arpit is asking, and do you see yourself performing AEW sometime down the line?
I like him. I love the fact that I love the fact that there's an alternative to just one company. That there are several places now where wrestlers can kind of go and put a roof over their heads, and do what they do. And I like it. I love AEW. Could I see myself working there? Sure, maybe. Right now, honestly, I'm focused on my wrestling school, and we actually have a few of our students, Dante and Darius, and Julia Hart, that are with AEW right now. And to me, that kind of stuff right now is just as awesome emotionally as it was to, like, have that WrestleMania moment, to have, hey, I'm wrestling Shawn Michaels tonight, like that kind of stuff. It's just as fulfilling to be able to, like, hey, I had a hand in that guy's training. I mean, I don't take credit for them fully. I just, because I give the credit to them, but I was glad that I was able to have a hand in that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially Dante, man. He's getting a lot of television time in AEW nowadays.
He really is. And I think his brother's going to have just as much time. He's just as talented. He just unfortunately had a pretty bad injury.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's his recovery time looking like as far as what you know from his injury?
I'm not sure. I think he's close to being able to go back.
Yeah, that's good.
But I can't speak for him. So
sure. Along those lines, your thoughts on Cody leaving the company the way he did?
I don't know the circumstances around it, but like, the wrestling business is just, it's ever evolving. And it's funny how, like, people get mad when somebody gets fired or released, whatever. But, like, at the end of the day, it's just a part of the business. You work for a territory for a certain period of time, and then you go to the other territory. It's kind of like the old days. It's just different.
Yep. Yes, indeed. A lot of people ask this. I've talked to you about this many times, but for those who don't know, why didn't you cash in Money in the Bank when you had it?
So this is fun. Have we talked about this before?
We've talked about
this. We have, right?
Yep.
We talked about this. So I'll tell it again. I'll try to keep it brief. But I was going to. In fact, I left SmackDown one night, and I got a call from Michael Hayes, and he was like, "Hey, you need to come back to the building, like, right now. Vince needs to talk to you." So I was driving with Matt Hardy. We rolled back to the building. I'm walking down to Vince's office, and I see Batista coming out, and he came up to me, and he, like, gave me a big hug. He's like, "Hey, man, so proud of you. Just enjoy it, man. Enjoy it." And I was like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "You'll find out when you go in there." So I went into the office, and it was Vince and Stephanie, and they said, "Look, Undertaker, we wanted Undertaker to be, Undertaker was the champ at the time. We want Undertaker to be the champion. We were hoping that he would remain the champion for, like, the next year. However," this is kind of plays into what we were talking about earlier about how you just have to, like, be ready for things to sort of roll with the punches. And he said, unfortunately, he's got an injury and he needs to get surgery on his biceps. I think he tore his biceps. And he said, so next week on SmackDown, we're going to have you come out And he laid out this whole scenario where Undertaker was going to be wrestling inside a cage, and he was going to just barely, squeak out the victory against whoever he was in there with. And then somebody else was going to come out and get into the cage and beat him up a little bit more. And then maybe somebody else was going to come out and beat him up a little bit more. And then I was finally going to come out and cash in my briefcase and pin him. And then, so I remember I went out that night, and there was only a few people that knew it. It was Mark Carano and Michael Cole were in the office. So they were like two of the only people that knew. And they were kind of like, buying me shots and stuff like, hey, man, good job. You did it, And then I went home for the week for a couple days. And then we had a series of house shows leading up to the SmackDown. And I remember my first match, we had a double shot in Poughkeepsie. My first match, I took a weird bump and I felt like my arm exploded. And I remember rolling out to the outside of the ring, and Finley was on the outside, and he looked at me and he goes, that doesn't look good. And I went to the back, and my arm was already swollen completely, like from my shoulder all the way down to my wrist. Mm-hmm. And anyway, fast forward, I go to get an MRI that night. And then I went to the hotel room, and I'm waiting all day. God, I hope that this is nothing big. And I remember Stephanie called me in the room, and she was like, Ken, you tore your triceps off the bone, and you're going to have surgery, and you're going to be out for 9 months. And I was like, oh, that sucks. I remember thinking like, well, I still have a year to cash in this briefcase. Right. And she says, but unfortunately, we still have to get that title off of Taker. So we're going to have Vince's jet is going to come pick you up and fly you in to Penn State, and you're going to face Edge is going to challenge you for the briefcase, and then he's going to beat you, and then he's going to go on and do what you were supposed to do on SmackDown tomorrow night. And I was like, I'm not going to argue. So, okay. And then that was what happened. I got on the jet. I flew to Penn State, and I did a little backstage segment where Edge called me a chicken or something like that, and nobody called me chicken. Mm-hmm. And then I went out, and I remember I couldn't move. Like, I was really worried because Vince came up to me and he was like, what can you do? And I was like, nothing. So we did the thing where Edge attacked me from behind before the bell rang. He rolled me in the ring, ding, 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 and then he speared me. 1, 2, 3. So I then flew down to Birmingham, Alabama to meet with Dr. James Andrews, who does he's their surgeon. Mm-hmm. He works on NFL players, NHL players. And I remember sitting on his table the next day, and he came up to me and he started feeling my tricep, and he was like, that doesn't feel like a tear. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, yeah, I don't think that's a tear. That's not torn. And he couldn't find the MRI, so I had to do another MRI, which I hate because I'm claustrophobic to a degree. So I hated having to lay in that tube anyways. So I did the MRI. Sure enough, my triceps wasn't torn. It was just like a large hematoma. It was a bunch of blood vessels that popped in my arm, and just, my arm filled with blood. And he said, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you'll be good to go. So that was my almost.
Wow. Yeah, they were just waiting. I'm wondering, we've talked about that before many times. Before we go, I want you to plug the Academy one more time, but I'm just it just makes me wonder, why couldn't someone else? Why did the briefcase had to be the way that Taker lost the title?
Right. And I agree with you, but I think at the time it was just they were under the gun. We have to figure out what we're going to do here. And that was the only.
To me, it's just as simple as he just lose the match that he had on SmackDown.
Right. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Hindsight is always 2020, right?
2020. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah. You said or you're about to throw out another option there?
Nah.
No. Okay.
Nah. We won't.
All right.
We
Well,
won't go there.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let them know about the academy one more time, my man.
So the Academy School of Professional Wrestling, we're getting back to. We're relaunching on March 1st. We're going to be located inside like a 25,000 square foot, as I stated, paradise. And they're the home to it's a boxing gym. There's an MMA studio there. There's a ballet studio. There's basketball courts. There's a basketball group that meets there. Yoga. They do cardio kickboxing. They do all sorts of different things. And we are going to be located in that facility. If you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler and you are in the Twin Cities area, or you would like to relocate to the Twin Cities, please give us a call, or actually please text us, because I prefer text. I don't like talking to people. Do you like talking to people on the phone? Like, are you one of those guys that like?
Prefer text.
I prefer text, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit and. Yeah. So
I don't have the bandwidth typically in my schedule to have long conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so please text us at 507-722-2776. And that comes right to my phone. I will message you, and we'll talk, and hopefully get you set up on your journey to fulfilling your dreams.
Nice. And that's the correct number right there, right?
That's right.
All right. Screenshot this number. Screenshot this right now. Here we go. Screenshot it. There's a number right there. Go to text that number for the academy to talk to my guy right here, and he'll get you right, man. Of course, we see that there's proof in the pudding what we see with some stars in AEW currently. So, Ken, it's always a pleasure talking to you, my man.
Same here, man. I love you, dude.
I love you back, man. Have a good night.
All right, brother.